got it, we would have like a handbook book or anything. That's so.
6 months later, they were both submitted.
Yeah. I can go get my laptop if I need to.
I think the only one I found that was slower than that was the city of Fresno.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm about ready for that.
Yeah, you deserve it.
Pretty sure.
Even that place reminds me of that movie, Douglas, where freeway or
Falling
whatever.
down.
Falling down. And I leave that home, I just want to like,
Yeah. Oh, back check. Just do it one time. It's only one time.
5-minute public comment. Anybody else coming?
Brandon, how are you?
Fine, thank you. How you doing?
Good.
It's been a long day.
You want to wait a few more minutes to see if Paul shows?
We've been waiting. It's fine with you guys. Just a few. I think last time he jumped in a little late, but I think you were.
I hate to say this, but we're going to run this meeting the way I used to run meetings.
Quickly.
Like on time, and let's go.
Done.
Well,
It's not like it's controversial.
it is 6:04. So
No.
That's right. It's not a controversial hearing.
Or last time he had a
It's process.
vacation or something. So.
Yeah.
Hello, how are you doing?
I will say
Good
that.
to see you, John. Make the drive.
Yes.
Luckily, you're against rush hour mostly.
Well, not as much as I thought.
I meant that I wrote on or tried to mention.
No, you don't.
Was not ever picked
Yep.
up. And Paul was getting way out there on some of that stuff because
Okay.
a lot of that's already been done because we built them. We have a whole ADU department that's already been done by the state of California dictating what you can and cannot do. So all that conversation was, no, there's nothing to talk about.
Okay. We're live. And since we're live, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Valdez,
Present.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Here?
Commissioner Bach,
Here.
Commissioner Rowe,
Here.
Vice Chairperson Lee.
Present? Okay. With that being said, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of April 14th?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any questions, concerns? All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. And let's move on to public comments. Public comments is a time when any person may address the commission on any item that is not on the agenda or any item that is within our jurisdiction. A maximum of 5 minutes is allowed for each speaker. Do I have any requests for public comments? There's none from the audience. Do we have any on any other multimedia presentation? Hearing none? Okay, I will close the public comments, and that moves us to a public hearing. We will open the public hearing scheduled for 6 o'clock for awarding competitive allocations for residential development for 2022.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners, Vice Chair Blaney. I'm Holly Owen, I'm Community Development Director, and the agenda item tonight is the awarding of competitive housing unit allocations for residential development for 2022. In accordance with the provisions of Section 1609060 of Kingsburg Municipal Code, the recommendation is to take the following actions. Review the rating and ranking for competitive housing unit allocations for the residential housing units for the proposed development projects identified below for the 2022 housing unit allocations. 63 lots, single-family development, West Star Construction applicant on 18.85 acres. Northwest corner of Mendocino and Solig Avenues to develop single-family residential lots for custom home construction. Allocate 63 single-family residential housing units. 51 lot single-family development by Dell Homes, applicant on 14.42 acres west of Mendocino, north of Cam, south of Carruthers Avenues, to develop 51 single-family residential lots, allocate 51 single-family residential housing units. And secondly, that the Kingsburg Planning Commission pass the attached resolution recommending to the Kingsburg City Council approval of the allocation of 114 single-family residential units for the 2022 calendar year pursuant to the Kingsburg's Growth Allocation Program. So at this time, I'd like to give you a little history at this point in the executive summary. Back in the early 2000s, Kingsburg began to receive applications for annexation and for subdivision construction. Some concern at that time was raised by residents and by the council, and the result was the growth management system of the Kingsburg Municipal Code, which is in your staff report, attachment A. It was enacted by a vote of the residents, Measure N. It's a charter amendment to the City of Kingsburg Charter in November 2004. It was a result of concerns about unplanned and uncoordinated growth in and around the city. And the growth management system, as it's written, provides for 115 housing unit allocations to be made available at the beginning of each calendar year, with the potential 2 rounds of applications for housing units per year. So how does this process work? It's fairly detailed and specific. It's in the Kingsburg Muni Code. When it was first passed, it was a growth management ordinance. Seemed like a good idea at the time, but there was really no outline process on how to administer that. As a result, a number of meetings were held with stakeholders to talk about what that administrative process would look like. The result is part of the Kingsburg Municipal Code, and that outlines a rating and ranking system. It's quite detailed, and it's in the code, and it's applied to each proposed housing project with the use of a 100-point scoring system. A number of criteria are considered, and your job as a planning commission is also spelled out, as you're required to review the rating and ranking recommendations prepared by city planning staff. Attachment D is that rating and ranking prepared by staff, and that is for this cycle's proposed residential housing projects. So let's look, if you will, at attachment D. I'll give Carol a little time to get that up on the screen. Apologies for the discussion there. I said there were 3 projects, but there are just 2 this year submitted for the 2022 allocation process. It is based on the information submitted by the applicant with the knowledge that there is some master planning that's required by the North Kingsburg specific plan. There are 5 categories that are used to assess the projects. And the first one is the suitability of location. So as I go into this, I'm just going to let you know some of the points that were assigned and how we got there. The suitability of location is fairly clear cut to rank, and that's the next page, Carol. And it is given just sort of the physical location. It's laid out. Is the property within city limits? Is it adjacent to the city? Is it outside the sphere of influence and annexation required? So it goes from 25 points to 0 points. Now, both the properties under consideration tonight do require annexation, but some of them are bordered on they're within the urban limit boundary. So some of those points were given to accordingly, depending on where they were located on the map. There is a location map also in your packet as to where these properties are, and they happen to be adjacent to each other too. The next one, Carol, next page, is inclusionary housing. Now, this was a goal for the rating and ranking for allocation units. We have determined over the years, it's borne out over the year, let's say, that this is a difficult product to intermingle with market rate housing. I think the developers would agree with that. They have a different kind of tax credits for financing. It's a specialty of certain developers also. That has been a little bit of that's been a tough bar to meet for any application that I know of. It may be time to actually look at the criteria for this particular category because it's not common. It's not uncommon that what's happened with this rating happens with many of them, and that's that we couldn't give them any points for inclusionary housing. There was verbal support of that, but that's but neither project included that in their application. The next category was meeting needs, demands, and objectives. There are 4 specific criteria that are cited. They range from expanding housing choices to satisfying demonstrated market demands, providing housing for underserved or special needs populations. And when looking at both these project, it appeared that at least in the narrative that the Bonadella project had in their application, they did highlight multi-generational living spaces with several of their 2-story models. That I believe might be also offered by Westar, and given their previous developments and my knowledge of that, but it wasn't included in their narrative for this particular round of allocations. Both projects cited meeting demonstrated market demands as rationale for point awards, and they received equal points for that requirement. And the Bonadell project received 2 points for highlighting the sewer capacity concerns that they are facing with their project as a challenge to the development. So the total points there were Westar with 10 and the Bonadell project with 17. The next category was the infrastructure and services. This is a little bit of a challenging category, and when it comes to rating and ranking, in my opinion, as it is sometimes properties come with infrastructure challenges, and would you reward a project for overcoming those, or would you, does this narrative discourage any development at all in that area? So it's kind of a philosophical question, really. The scoring is based on criteria that are listed there, but it does emphasize the willingness to increase capacity of existing infrastructure, enter into a reimbursement agreement, or oversize infrastructure. So I think the intent is that they're looking for developers to try to overcome this, and then make sure that those points are rewarded accordingly. Both applications indicated a willingness to dedicate property for systems and services, and dedications of real property for other uses such as pedestrian paths and open space required by the North Kingsburg specific plan was mentioned in the Westar project. And the Bonadell project not only would be willing to expand the existing storm drain basin if needed, but has been in discussions with SKF over an infrastructure choke point that limits development at this time for the property, a sewer choke point that's downstream from them. They expressed a willingness, if necessary, to enter into a reimbursement agreement, and I know that those discussions are ongoing. So in terms of architectural design, I just want to make clear that although elevations and renderings were submitted for these, and we like to see those as part of the allocation process, they will be held to development standards under the North Kingsburg specific plan for single-family residential projects, and a list of requirements that entails. We are also realistic enough to know that this is a submittal and a conceptual at this stage. It's pretty early on, and they will be in discussions with staff, and perhaps even receive some feedback from Planning Commission tonight or from Council in this allocation process to guide them in perhaps changing or revising some of their elevations. So this is kind of like a placeholder. People like to see what's being proposed just generally. So that's that both applications included elevations and renderings, so they both received the 15 points. So you see that the totals, there's out of a possible 100, they were pretty close together as their ratings and rankings. And this is not, in my experience for Kingsburg anyway, not that uncommon of a rating and ranking to be achieved. So just to reiterate, it's all in the North Kingsburg specific plan area. They're processed as planned unit developments because of that. That's a natural when you start developing in that area. Subject to design standards, other requirements set forth in the North Kingsburg specific plan. Both developers are aware of those requirements, and the city manager and I worked up a list that we think reflects past construction goals and what we'd like to see in terms of connectivity and elevations and that type of asset and amenity in that area. And each project that will be constructed must be annexed in the city of Kingsburg through LAFCO, Fresno LAFCO. And I think if the worded tentative map also, I just wanted to mention, is required for the annexation process, but it can occur at the same time as the annexation application. So if allocations are awarded, that would be the natural next step. And the recommendation that you will come to tonight will move to council then, and to be heard on their June 15th meeting. The Kingsburg ordinance is pretty specific in terms of dates, date certain that this process moves forward twice a year, and we're at our first meeting in May, and the first meeting in June for City Council will be the next hearing for this allocation awards. With that, you see there's it is not considered a project as part of CEQA. This act of awarding allocations is not the project. And staff will recommend that the Kingsburg Planning Commission recommend that the City Council approve that environmental determination and award the 114 housing units as the 2022 housing unit allocation. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you.
I'm available for any questions.
Questions from council? No questions from council? Okay. Then we will go ahead and open for public comment. Is there any comment to be made from the public?
Good evening, John Bonadelli, Bonadelli Homes. Nice to meet you. I have brochures of the product line that we'd like to bring to Kingsburg and some pictures. Our company is a 75-year-old company. We build homes primarily in the Fresno Clovis area. Although in the last 10 years we've increased our footprint and we're now building all the way up to Merced. A few years ago we started building in Visalia. And this particular product line that we want to bring to Visalia, or excuse me, I'm sorry, bring to Kingsburg, we currently are building it in Visalia, Fresno, and Clovis. It's a popular product line. We think it would fit very well with the neighborhood and your community. Each plan comes with 3 elevations, optional, a farmhouse, Tuscan. You can see in the pictures if you'd like. And like Holly had mentioned, we have two stories that also have the what we call a casita option, which is basically a standalone 1-bedroom apartment with its own entrance. And the homes also are from 1,900 square feet to 3,537 square feet. We would probably offer 5 plans in between those 2 ranges. And we are excited to try to be able to be a builder in your community.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The Bonadelli name is a long-time, well-established name, and we appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much.
Evening, Dave Crinklaw, West Star Construction. I think most of you know me, anyways. nice to meet you, the ones that don't. So, as you know, we're building Kings Estates. Basically, this is an extension of Kings Estates. We're very familiar with the allocation process. We were here when it all came about. Of course, the North Pacific Plan, too, we were here when that was developed. And I think it's very fitting, does a good job. We like the large lots. If you drive through our subdivisions, you'll see that they're definitely large lots, and you give up some ground for that, but by the same token, I think it just makes for a better neighborhood. And so we just plan on moving ahead. You know, these things take so long that, you know, you have to start right now and get through the process to be able to keep on track. So we appreciate your time tonight and going through this process, and we'll see at the tentative map stage, we hope anyways. Another thing to consider too is, you know, we've already got the alley loaded product, of course the mother-in-law portions of the options on our homes too, which is very popular. So we're already established with all that, and if you got any questions, I'm free to ask. Thanks.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, I will close the public comment. Any further discussion from commission? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I do have one quick question for Holly. With this allocation, where does that put us in relation to total allocations that would be available?
They replenish every year. We go to the well. And so we haven't actually, the spreadsheet that I included in your staff report didn't reflect that yet. It was the allocations that were, because we were looking back to last year, there was an official allocation period that opened in fall of last year. There were no submittals at that time, or we didn't bring any forward, and so they rolled. And so the numbers you see are what's available to allocate, and they do not include the ones here. So right now we are in a surplus, and that I anticipate that may stay for another year or two. It's difficult to say because it's a long process to develop here and to develop just to annex, and that's really often where we're at now is annexation, and you throw that into the mix, and it's a 18 to 24 month process at times. So we're in good shape. The allocation chart that I included in the staff report reflects that, and we will add after this process. We'll add the units that come every year. I think it's 70 single family, 35 multifamily. So,
Thank you.
Sure.
My only comment was just that the Bonadelli name, knowing the brand and being familiar with it, I think it would be a welcomed addition to the city.
Okay. I will now go ahead and, since there's no more discussion, close the public hearing and turn it over to...
You go ahead. I can't walk in the middle of it.
Sure you could.
No, I can't.
Okay. Anyway, but let the record show that Paul has shown up. Anyway, our possible actions are a decision regarding the environmental document. And does anybody have any questions regarding that? Hearing none, then it would be in our action to go ahead and find a negative declaration, if I remember correctly.
Actually, I believe it's in your staff report. It's considered not a project, so it's an exemption.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is just an action by you. Therefore, it's not. We're not considering the project for CEQA purposes. We're considering the action of what we're taking tonight.
So we don't
it's a
need-
governmental action.
Okay, so we don't need to go ahead and.
Yeah,
have
it's
an-
in the resolution just to cover it. But
Okay, cool.
yes.
Okay. And then that brings us to our next action item would be to adopt, deny, or modify the resolution. Any questions? Would I hear a motion to adopt the resolution as presented? I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. Any discussion? Any concerns? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. And the motion passes. And Holly, would you like to address any future items?
I believe I owe you some work product. I think it's on ADUs. I'll be frank, it hasn't quite risen to the top of the pile yet. We've had some, as you noticed, we've had office remodeling. We all scattered to the four winds, at least in Kingsburg. We're back now to work, but we're all trying to get a little more organized. But that's really one of my biggest goals. I also plan to gather materials to release an RFP to determine just how much it may be to update our general plan, because that's certainly a goal of mine, and we'll see what the numbers come out at for that. 30 years is a long time to have a general plan still in place. It reflected the values and the goals at the time. I don't think all of them have changed by any means, but it's time to at least freshen up the maps, take a relook at the circulation, perhaps look at the North Kingsburg specific plan, figure out what we think works, what we need to change. So
Okay.
that's on my to-do list.
Any further comments from council or from commission? Then I hereby, oh, sorry, Paul.
Are we on other items?
There is no other items.
Not for tonight.
So, that being said, I will declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other items you want to talk about for next week around?
Actually, there's some.
Yep.